Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Sabbath services. I just talked to our webmaster, and just on truthofgod.org, our main website, we're already past 1 million right now visitors to the site for the year. And the average time is up to over 15 minutes. So there are a lot of people looking for the truth. And especially when you look at the world the way it is, you wonder what on earth is going on. Everything is upside down and backwards. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that here pretty quick. Now then, we have the final box for the Bible on CD, or the whole Bible read, and it took us 2.5 years to do it. Okay, we had a smaller box, but it did not hold up well. Just opening it 3 or 4 times, it came apart. So what they did, they took and made it a miniature of the box that the Bible comes in. Okay, have it all, 10 CDs. Okay. Now, how many been watching the news and wondering what's happened? Did you believe it was suicide? If you believe it was suicide, you don't understand how deep and thick the deep state is. Okay? And like, what was it, Chuck Schumer warned Trump, well, if you don't go along with the CIA and the intelligence service, they have 6 ways to Sunday to get you. And I think that pretty well tells the story of what's going on. Okay, let's come back here. Let's first of all come back to 2 Timothy 3. That's page 1222. 1222. Okay? Why do we have so much evil today? There are 2 reasons. One, because of people who will not obey God, and 2, because there's a Satan, the devil, who is the god of this world. And so today we're going to examine both of those. Okay? So Paul writes, know this first, that in the last days perilous times shall come. Does that describe what's going on in the world today? See? Now the Bible is the only book that gives us the history from creation to the return of Christ. For men shall be lovers of self. Isn't that true? Lovers of money, braggarts, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, listing everything that you see going on in the society today. Implacable, slanderers, without self-control, savage, despisers of those who are good, betrayers, reckless, egotistical, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. Okay? But it's ironic. There are over 2 billion supposed Christians in the world. And yet, they seem unable to stop the evil. Now, why? We'll answer that in a bit. Okay? But verse 5 now. Having an outward appearance of godliness, but denying the power of true godliness. But as for you, turn away from all these. Okay? Now let's come to Matthew 24. Matthew 24, which is a prophecy from the time of Christ in various cycles down to today. And it's happened time and time again from the time of Christ until now. That's page 986, Matthew 24. Matthew 24, let's just start in verse 1 and we'll go through several of the verses here. So we understand that the Bible is relevant today in the world, in the lives of people in the world, and in the lives of those who are Christ's. And Christ's are the ones who are called, the chosen, the faithful, the few. Okay? Not the many. And after going out, Jesus departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to point out the buildings of the temple. And it was massive as you look from the Mount of Olives back toward the temple was. It's about, well, close to 700 feet of huge stone wall going up. But Jesus said to them, "Do you not see all these? Truly I tell you, there shall not be left here even a stone upon a stone that shall not be thrown down." Question. How many have seen the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem? You've seen it on the news, you've seen it in a picture. What is that Wailing Wall? You see stone upon stone. And the Mosque of Omar is there. And the Muslims claim that and own it. And the Jews say, that's where the temple should be, and we'll destroy it. Question. How can that be where the temple was when Jesus said there would not be one stone left upon another? Because that is not the true location of where the temple actually was. Now, we've got that DVD on that, which is very interesting. Okay? So let's go on. And he was going on to Mount of Olives. His disciples came to him alone, saying, "Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of your coming and the completion of the age?" Now remember, this is about 1900 years ago. Jesus answered and said to them, "Be on guard that no one deceives you." Now we're going to see a little bit later the place that Satan likes to deceive most is where there are those who profess to be Christians. And when you understand that, then you will understand why the confusion. Let's go on. "Many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you do not let these things disturb you, for it is necessary that these things take place, but the end is not yet." Now, John Coulter had been doing the history of the church, going clear back to the early centuries right after the apostles died, and then on into 700, 800, 900, and in the 1100s, when they had the Crusades, when they had the armies going to Jerusalem, when they had the Muslims coming up to Europe, the church was thinking, boy, the end is near. See? So these things come in cycles. But we'll see what the final key is so that we'll understand we're getting closer than it was back then. Okay? Verse 7. "Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in different places." Sound like the evening news? Now, here's another key. You go back centuries, communication was slow. Today, boom, it's instant. So, you look at the final end time, all of these things are happening, and it's happening so everyone will know it. No one's going to be without excuse. Okay? Verse 8. Now all these things are the beginning of sorrows. Then they shall deliver you up to affliction, and they shall kill you, and you shall be hated by all nations for my name's sake. That has happened, repeated over and over again. Then many shall be led into sin. Isn't that what's happening today, beginning in our state schools? Led into sin, okay. And shall betray one another, shall hate one another, and many false prophets shall arise and shall deceive many. Why is that possible? We'll look at a couple of the keys how to avoid that. But let's go on. Verse 12, because lawlessness shall be multiplied. Look at what is happening just in this past 10 days. 2 mass shootings, a shootout in Pennsylvania on drug deals, and the problems and difficulties that they are having. Okay? Lawlessness, corruption at the highest level, right? Yes, indeed. Therefore, the love of many shall grow cold, but the one who endures to the end, that one shall be saved. Now, verse 14 and 15 are the key which tell us where we are. We're certainly past the beginning of this. We're certainly past many cycles of it happening down through history. So let's read. And the gospel of the kingdom shall be proclaimed in all the world for a witness to all nations. Now, all the world, all nations. Now today, there is the means of doing that. For example, just the small part that we have an office in Canada, in Netherlands, in South Africa, in Australia, in Canada, America, Malaysia, and who knows where it's going to go from there. Because God is the one who opens the doors. And there are other churches of God doing things very similar to what we are doing. Okay? The gospel, that's about the kingdom of God, the return of Christ, the setting up of the government of God on this earth with Christ as the king and the resurrected saints as those who are going to rule the world. See? Okay. Now, with all the technology we have today, it can be done. Our websites go around the world 24/7. Different websites go around the world 24/7. There are now satellites being put into effect, low altitude satellites, for what? Wi-Fi. Now, what can you get on Wi-Fi? Any disaster, if you have a phone, bam, you can pick it up and you can watch it, can't you? Okay. Likewise, preaching of the gospel. So it's not only the churches, but a little later, just before the end, Book of Revelation shows 2 witnesses, powerful from God. We won't get to that in this message, okay? He says, and then shall the end come. Now, what's the key to show the beginning of the end, the end, the end? Okay. Next verse. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation that was spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place. Now, the holy place is in the temple. The temple was destroyed in 70 AD. Book of Revelation chapter 11 shows that there's going to be a temple. And we'll look at some other scriptures in a bit. which will show that that is going to happen. Okay? The Jews are preparing for the temple. And when it's time for them to build the temple, they will know where the location is to build it. And it won't be where the Mosque of Omar is. So when the temple is starting to be built, there are very few years left, and of which the tribulation will be 3.5 of those. Okay? Now, notice this parenthetical statement. Jesus didn't say the one who sees it. Jesus did not say the one who reads. John, who canonized the New Testament, put that there. Why? Because it was destroyed in 70 A.D. He had the prophecy of Revelation 11 that there would be a temple. So he didn't know what it was. So he said, the one who reads, let him understand. Now, when the temple was destroyed in 70 A.D., there was no abomination of desolation. Okay? So this is how the Bible is understood. A little here, a little there, you put it together. Okay? Now, then he says, let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who's on the housetop not come down, take anything out. The one who's in the field, don't go back for his garment. Woe to those who are pregnant and nursing infants. Now notice verse 20. Pray that your flight be not in the winter. Why? Because there'll be false prophets. Nor on the Sabbath. Even then, God doesn't want the Sabbath broken. What does this statement here tell us? The Sabbath day is still in force. And that's one of the keys to understanding the Bible. Okay? Now then, let's finish this about the abomination of desolation. Let's come to Revelation 11. Okay. Revelation 11 and verse 1. Then the angel gave me a measuring rod like a staff, that's page 1235. Okay. 1235. Saying, arise and measure the temple of God. When this was given to John, the temple was long destroyed. Well over 30 years. And the altar and those who worship in it, leave out the court that is within the temple, and do not measure it, because it has been given up to the Gentiles, and they shall trample upon the holy city for 42 months or 3.5 years. Okay? Now, let's come to Revelation 13. Revelation 13. They've been trying to get a world government and a world leader for how long? Well, actually beginning with Woodrow Wilson, the League of Nations, and then Theodore Roosevelt and the United Nations. They're still pushing for it. We can be thankful that Trump is against world government, but all that's going to do is cause them who want it, after he's president, to really push it, because it's prophesied to happen. That's the thing. And you can look out and see the seed. Okay? So here, Revelation 13, page 1236, here's what is developing. Verse 1, and I stood on the sand of the sea and saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Now this is the final world government. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard, his feet like the feet of a bear, his mouth like the mouth of a lion, and the dragon, who is the dragon? Satan the devil gave him his power and his throne and his great authority. Okay? Now we're going to see why there is so much lawlessness and why it's so hard to get rid of, because Satan is the one who is behind it. Okay? Just go across to the next column over here, verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, the ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, who is deceiving the whole world. Now think about that. Would you say the whole world is deceived with many deceptions? Okay. Reverse the question. How many believe and know the truth of the Bible? Very few. Okay. Who is deceiving the whole world? He was cast down to the earth, and his angels were cast down with him. And save that for another sermon. That's the beginning of the Great Tribulation right there. All right, now back to chapter 13 to show you how it's going to be when he takes over. It's going to start out, it's going to be wonderful and great, and whoa, we're going to have world peace. But it will turn into the greatest calamity the world has ever experienced. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, slain to death, but his deadly wound was healed. Now notice the rest of this verse. And the whole earth, that's everybody on the earth, was amazed and followed the beast. And they worshiped the dragon. Now how is that going to be? It's going to be under the guise of all religions are working together, and we're all going to the same place. Okay? And the various ones, Catholics, Protestants, and so forth, and even the LDS are going to the Pope. So, you just wait. It's coming. They followed the beast, and they worshiped the dragon, who gave his authority to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast and who has the power to make war against him? Okay? Quite a thing. Then they're going to come after the true Christians. Now, let's come to 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, and let's look at the abomination that makes desolate. Okay? 2 Thessalonians, we'll get the page here in just a minute. Page 1204. Because when it comes, everyone's going to think, yes, we're going to have peace. Yes, we're all together. But it's all going to backfire because Satan is the one who is making this happen. Okay. Chapter 2, verse 1. Now we beseech you, brethren, concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together to him, that's the resurrection, that you be not quickly shaken in mind, nor be troubled, neither by spirit, because there are demon spirits out there, nor by word, whatever message is given, nor by epistle, as if from us. Now think about what the apostle had to fight against. False epistles, saying that the day of Christ is present. And that's the way they express it. Do not let anyone deceive you. That's where we started, right? In Matthew 24. Okay. By any means, because that day will not come unless the apostasy shall come first. And that apostasy is all religions gathering together, all governments submitting to the beast. And the stage is being set bit by bit by bit. Now notice. And the man of sin, that's the beast we read of in Revelation 13, shall be revealed, the son of perdition. Now notice how we're going to be able to know who it is. No false alarm. Jesus said, the abomination that makes desolate stand in the holy place. There must be the temple. And notice what he's going to do to that temple. The one who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is an object of worship, so that he comes into the temple of God and sits down as God, proclaiming that he himself is God. Well, that's quite a statement, isn't it? Huh? But that's the abomination of desolation. Now you know why John wrote that parenthetical statement. The one who reads, let him understand. Because he helped compile all the books of the New Testament together. He knew what Jesus said in Matthew and in Mark and in Luke, and he knew what Paul had written in 2 Thessalonians. Okay. Do you not remember verse 5? When I was still with you, I told you of these things. And now you understand what is holding him back in order for him to be revealed in his own set time. And that will be the time that God determines. We don't know that. We don't understand that. But we know by the events. And we know by looking at world events and events in the different nations, what's going on, that we're moving closer and closer and closer to it. Okay? Verse 7. For the mystery of lawlessness, what did we read in Matthew 24? Lawlessness shall be multiplied. Is already working. Only there is one who is restraining at the present time until it arises out of the midst. What did we see? Revelation 13. It rose out of the sea. There it is, right there. And then the lawless one will be revealed. Now notice this next statement, because this tells us when this will be. Whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth. You can read that back there in Revelation 19. And will destroy with the brightness of his coming. So that's going to be a powerful thing that Christ is going to do. Even the one whose coming is according to the inner working of Satan, dwelling in him, possessing him, with all power and signs and lying wonders. Now, the next verse tells us how believable this will be. Okay? Let's read it. Verse 10. with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in those who are perishing, because they did not receive the love of the truth that they might be saved. Now, what is the truth? All right? Let's take a look and see what the truth is. Let's come back to Psalm 119. Okay? Page 762. Okay? 762. Psalm 119. Okay? Let's answer the question, what is the truth? Because there are many versions of people's ideas and opinions which they say is truth. For example, in Sunday keeping churches, they say the law is done away. Lie. Not true. How can you have lawlessness if there is no law? You can't. Look at the society. Remember the fellow just arrested there? They finally got out of that shootout in Philadelphia. He had a rap sheet 3 pages long. Lawlessness. What did he do? He broke the law. Lying, cheating, stealing, drugs, right? Against God, swearing, cursing, and all of this, all added, wrapped up in this one man's life. But because the authorities who are supposed to protect the innocent people, they have let men like this loose. Because they think that, oh, let's be liberal and generous. But they're really being sinful. Okay? Now, where it said back there in 2 Thessalonians 2, that they all accepted this because they didn't love the truth. Now, let's come to verse 141. Okay? 141, Psalm 119, page 762. Okay? I am small and despised, yet I do not forget your precepts. Your righteousness is an everlasting righteousness. Okay? Everlasting righteousness. And your law is the truth. Now think about that for a minute. Think about the 10 Commandments. We covered that a couple of weeks ago. Every one of the 10 Commandments are based on love. The first 4, to love God. The last 6, beginning with honor your father and mother, loving your neighbor. So you take the 10 Commandments and look what's going on in the world. There your answer is lawlessness, right? Because if everyone kept the laws of God, think of that. The right God, no idols, no taking God's name in vain and lying from the pulpit and saying God said this when he didn't. Everyone keeping the Sabbath. All children honoring father and mother. No murder, no adultery. Okay, no stealing, no lying, no coveting. Why, you don't need a jail. See? The best job in the world would be to be a policeman because you'd have nothing to do. There'd be very little crime, if any. See? Okay? Your law is the truth. Now, let's come down here to 151. 151. You are near, O Lord, and all your commandments are truth. There it is. Did not have the love of the truth. 160. Your word is true from the beginning, and every one of your righteous ordinances endure forever. Now think about that when people claim the laws of God are done away. Okay, that's saying they don't exist forever. Okay? And you're in lawlessness going against God, which then in the society multiplies and increases to what we see today. All right? 163. I hate and despise lying, but I love your law. What did we just read in 2 Thessalonians 2? They didn't have the love of the truth, so they were given over to a great deception. Okay? And your law is the truth. Now, 172. My tongue shall speak of your word, for all your commandments are righteousness. Now that's quite a thing, isn't it? Okay. Now then, those are just a few verses in the Bible which help define what is the truth. So we see a world and a society that has been given over to all kinds of sin and wretchedness and transgressing the laws of God, and no one can solve the problems. See? Now, for example, everyone gets all upset over the fact of these mass shootings, and we should. But there's something else going on that is greater than that. 3,000 murders a day of the unborn. Every day. 3,000. Don't you think God knows? Because in every conception, God is the one who has given life. And God is the one who has given the Spirit to that new life. Because without the Spirit, the body is dead. So God knows. But look at the confusion going on, trying to reduce it or stop it. All who participate in it and all who support it are actively murderesses, and accessories to the fact. So you can get all upset over the mass shootings you want, but God sees the mass carnage of 3,000 every day, every day, every day, to the tune of what? 66 million in America murdered. And God's judgment through the evil coming upon us is there. All right, let's go ahead and take a break and we'll come back.